mum's mental health got to a point where she was getting in bad relationships with new people who, you know, abused her, treated her like crap, and spent from 16 to like 20 watching that, hearing it. And then once mum was out of these relationships, that's when the aftershock come, because that's when, you know, my mum turned to drink. She's becoming an alcoholic.
When I got home from the hospital and I had a 5-day-old baby at that point, my husband decided it was a good idea to rape me.
In hindsight, I was suffering with depression.
Do you know what? You can put yourself in another person's shoes and have empathy and go, actually, I get why you're feeling like that, and say it's okay to feel that way.
Everyone's got a story, and it all carries a powerful message. It all carries a powerful message.
Head Cases Podcast, hosted by Damo Sims and Nick Stoppani.
Hello, welcome to the very first episode of our brand new show, Head Cases Podcast, with my good pal Damo Sims and myself, Mr. Nick Stoppani. Now, I think it's important to firstly kick off this brand new show and explain exactly why we have decided to do this show, the Head Cases Podcast. Now, for me, it's because I believe mental health affects us all. It really does. And it's time to break the silence. Now, we aim to amplify voices and reduce stigma that surrounds mental health. What about you, Damo? Why are you doing this show?
Well, first of all, I am so pleased to be hosting this with you, Nick. For me, it's the fact that we're providing a platform for people to share their stories and experiences, as you said, where we are doing our own little bit to reduce the stigma. We've got some really fascinating guests lined up.
We sure do. But first, Damo, can I please share the story of how our paths first crossed? Now, it all comes down to a guy named Mr. Darren Blackmore, a.k.a. Daz Games. It was during my filming of an episode of Daz's Ghost Hunt Season 1 that I took part in, that our destinies intertwined, Damo, and I'm so grateful that we intertwined. I really am. We arrived at your escape room in Stoke-on-Trent, and the rest, they say, Damo, is history.
Well, do you know what, mate? I completely agree. The universe brought us together to make this wonderful, much-needed show.
Oh, wonderful times. But listen, more importantly, okay, coming up on today's show, because that's why we're here. You know, we've got guests. We've got guests waiting. Coming up on today's show, we'll be hearing from Melissa, a mother who will share her story about her son's experience with alopecia, which developed when he was just 9 years old. Oh, imagine that. Additionally, I spoke with a lovely lady from Alopecia UK, which is a national charity, to learn more about the support available for anyone living with the condition of alopecia.
Wow, what an amazing first episode.
Yeah.
There are also numerous ways that you can engage with the show, whether it's by becoming a featured guest, just like Melissa and her son have today. You could easily just send us a text or a voice note.
How excited. In fact, add us to your contacts.
Yes, add us to your contacts. Our WhatsApp number for listeners in the UK is 07822 010 819, and if you're calling from outside of the UK, then dial with +44 and omit the 0 at the beginning. So the number one more time is 07822 010 819.
Absolutely, get interactive. You can also explore our website at headcasespodcast.co.uk, and you'll be able to find links to all our social media channels. In fact, the most important thing is join us in building a community of like-minded individuals who support mental health awareness. Now, Melissa and Matthew Garrett Herbert from Northamptonshire, who have first-hand experience with alopecia areata, are patiently waiting on their phones. Now, we'll be speaking to them shortly. But before we do, a few days ago, Damo, I had a conversation with Amy Johnson, the communications manager at the charity Alopecia UK. Now, I began by asking her about the inception of Alopecia UK, which traces back almost 20 years ago to 2004.
So Alopecia UK, the start of it was essentially there was a 19-year-old young woman at university, a lady called Vicky, who at that point in time started to lose her hair. And there was nothing. There was no kind of organisation out there. There was no information as she was finding when she was looking on the internet. So her and her sister created a website from their bedroom, I think it was. Wow. And essentially Alopecia UK was born out of that. It started very much as a really just a website with lots of information. I think from memory, Vicky reached out to specialists in the area and was getting kind of medical stuff onto the website. And then followed shortly after an online forum, and that was when people started connecting with others. And then from that, I think it was like a bit of a demand from people to, could there be something more? Can we fundraise? So it was like a natural step that a year later, the website that had been created became Alopecia UK, a registered charity.
Amazing. Now that is the power of the internet. Just what it can do, Amy, is phenomenal. Absolutely
absolutely.
Phenomenal.
And at that point as well, it's worth remembering that in 2004, the internet really was still kind of in its infancy. So I like to think of the power of the internet and the fact that maybe without it, this community of people that we have now may not have connected with each other. It might not have started in that way. I just think it's really lovely to look back and think that the internet on this occasion played a vital part in the creation of the organisation that exists today.
Amazing. How did you get involved with working for the charity then, Amy?
So my route into Alopecia UK is one of personal experience. So I have alopecia areata. I've had that for the past 14 years now. So in February 2010, my hair started falling out in clumps. Didn't know what was happening. It was, to say it was a shock was an understatement. And at that time, I'll be honest, I was just in a bit of a state of, I think, just complete and utter shock. I didn't understand what was happening. I was getting kind of limited information from the doctors as to, why it was happening, what they could do for me, if anything. Treatment options were extremely limited. And so I think it was for about 12 months, I just really struggled on in a state of complete bewilderment as to how I'd gone in a space of about 6 months to having a full head of hair to no hair at all. Gosh. And then it took me probably about 18 months into my journey with alopecia to actually find Alopecia UK. At that point, nobody had signposted me to the organisation. Nobody had kind of said, you might want to check if there's a charity. And because I was so, I think, overwhelmed and probably quite vulnerable at that point, feeling really depressed, feeling very low, I didn't think that there'd be anything out there that could help. And for me, I completely believe that Alopecia UK and finding other people with the condition was a turning point for me. So because I had such a powerful experience with being in touch with others, I think that's what spurred me on to, I started volunteering shortly after. And then from being a volunteer for a couple of years, I eventually became one of Alopecia UK's first 2 members of staff. So it's only been in the last decade that the charity has actually had paid staff all the way up to that point. So basically for the first 10 years, the charity was completely and utterly volunteer-led. So yeah, I've been a part of Alopecia UK's transition from being a volunteer organisation to being a charity that actually has a staff team in place, which I believe people with alopecia deserve to have a charity that has people working on its behalf, that it isn't just something where you might get an email back when somebody has the time to do it in their own time. It's no, we've got people that are there when people are in need.
We'll come on in a moment to how the charity actually supports people and, of course, how people can engage in supporting the charity. But first of all, I've come across information, Amy, that suggests that alopecia comes in various types. I just wondered, could you tell me what are the most common types of alopecia?
Yeah, absolutely. The most common types of alopecia are, there's a type called androgenetic alopecia, which you might also know as female pattern hair loss or male pattern hair loss. And that is the most common type. It affects most people as they get older. I think the statistic is it's 50% of men over the age of 50 experience androgenetic alopecia, and 50% of women over the age of 65.
That is what I am experiencing right now.
Right. Yeah.
And I've never publicly spoken about it, and because we're speaking with Matthew, who is a lovely young man who at the age of 9 he had a fall and the trauma sadly caused alopecia. I mean, to hear his story, and then I'm thinking, do you know what, all I'm doing is just losing a bit of hair, but it's still part of me.
Absolutely. And what we hear is that I think a lot of the time, I think with anything that we experience in life, it's easy for us to compare what we've got going on with what somebody else has. But it doesn't mean that what we're experiencing isn't difficult for us. And I think it's really worth remembering, those of us with hair loss, I think a lot of the time, because it is our hair, and because that physically isn't something that is, I mean, there actually are physical implications for losing your hair. I mean, I could go into what it's like to not have any eyelashes and eyebrows. There are physical implications to that. But because it's not like that, a lot of the time you compare it to, well, at least I've not, lost a leg. But there's very few other things that you would really do that comparison with. I think it's just because it's the loss of something, and you think, well, actually, I'm still fit and healthy. So why should I feel upset or bad or sad or whatever it is we might be feeling? But there's so much that's wrapped up in our hair. There's feelings of identity, femininity, masculinity. There's feelings of attractiveness, self-worth. There's lots of stuff that when our appearance changes, when suddenly the face that we've been looking at for however many years that might be, whether, say, you've had, you're a 9-year-old and you suddenly lose your hair, you've still had 9 years of being a certain way. And the same, I lost my hair at the age of 27. It's that you've got that sense of who you are seems to suddenly be under attack, because all of a sudden you're having to adjust to looking a different way. So I think, Alopecia UK is kind of a little bit different from other alopecia organisations across the world, which tend to focus on alopecia areata, which is the type that I have. We've made a very, distinct choice to say that we're actually here for people with all types of hair loss, knowing that the impact that it has on us, we don't think it's determined by the type of alopecia we have. It depends on who we are as an individual, our relationship with our hair, I think, before we start losing it, the support network around us, and lots of other things. But we don't believe that it's just for, one type of alopecia and that's the only people that struggle. We know from those that are in touch with us, so I'll just mention a couple of the other types you did ask about types.
Yes, please do.
So another common type is a type called telogen effluvium, which presents itself as a general thinning all over. That tends to be very common in people that have undergone quite a stressful either event in their lives or a stress on the body. So it's quite common in women that have just undergone childbirth. So telogen effluvium is like a disruption in the hair cycle, and that's often a temporary thing. But then for some people, it can be a more chronic condition. And then after androgenetic alopecia and telogen effluvium, the next more common one is alopecia areata, which, as I say, is the type that I've got, which is thought to be an autoimmune condition. And for some people, it remains as a few patches of hair loss. So it manifests typically as small, round, bald patches. But for some people with the condition, it progresses to either alopecia totalis, which is a loss of hair from the scalp, but you retain body hair, or in a rarer number of cases, it's alopecia universalis, which means a complete loss of hair from the whole body, which, again, is what I was mentioning about losing, eyebrows and eyelashes, as well as other body hair. So, at Alopecia UK, we very much are, we act on the basis that alopecia, the word, simply means hair loss, but there are a number of different types of hair loss. There's lots of different types of alopecia. And we are there for anyone that is struggling with what we know is an emotional and psychological impact often of a change in our visible appearance. That can be a difficult thing to come to terms with. There are other types as well. So just really quickly, there's a number of scarring alopecias, which again, they differ from the ones that I've talked about, because scarring alopecia is a permanent thing, whereas with the types that I've spoken about, that there can be treatment options and there can be things that can result in regrowth. But with a scarring alopecia, once you've got to the point of the hair being lost, it is lost for good.
Alopecia UK offers a range of support options for individuals. Can you talk us through what some of the choices are?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the charity, peer support is at the heart of everything we do. So basically, when we say peer support, we mean being in touch with other people who have direct experience of alopecia, who essentially, they understand, they get it. As amazing as family and friends can be, what we do find is it's often hugely valuable to be in touch with somebody else who has experienced the same journey. So from that, people can get kind of help and advice with regards to things like products and services, how to deal with the reactions of others. There's all sorts of stuff that you can really gain from being in touch with others. So there's a number of ways that we do that at the charity. And so I think the starting point for anyone seeking information and advice from us would be to visit our website. So we've got a website that's packed with information, advice, signposting to other places. So there's lots of stuff on there. I'd encourage anyone who might be struggling with alopecia to head to our website first. And then from there, you can find the various peer support options that we have. So we have people can contact the charity individually for individual support via phone or email. We've also got on our website a network of local face-to-face support groups across the UK. We offer online group meetings via Zoom. Probably the most popular way to be in touch with us and to be gaining that kind of immediate interaction is via our private Facebook groups. We've got a number of private groups, and they provide, that immediate contact with other people. We also have national and regional events. We've just come back over the last couple of weeks from our annual trip to Alton Towers, where we get lots of people together in the theme park, and that provides like a really great day of support and awareness. So we provide lots of options for people to be in touch with other people and immediately, hopefully, feel less alone and feel like other people can help to guide them through that it feels often quite an isolating and lonely journey.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's amazing what you're doing. So continued success. Finally, Amy, how can people engage in supporting the charity?
Being the small charity that we are, we rely on the members of the public and our community to get involved with fundraising and giving us donations. So if there's anyone that can get involved with supporting us, we're always looking for new people to fundraise. There's lots of information on our website as to how people can get more involved. And also, just to add to that, often fundraising for Alopecia UK can be like a really powerful and impactful way to kind of, I suppose, own your own experience with alopecia as well. So we find a lot of people that fundraise for us get a lot out of it personally as well.
And just to be clear, the website is alopecia.org.uk.
That's correct. And they say that it's definitely worth a look around. There's lots of information on there. And even things like, reading a blog from another person, just feeling like those words resonate with you can be really powerful.
Amy Johnson, Communications Manager from the charity Alopecia UK, speaking to me a few days ago. Now, please welcome our very first guest to Head Cases podcast, Melissa from Northamptonshire. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on the show. First of all, how did you first react when you discovered that your son had alopecia? And has your son's condition with alopecia impacted your own mental health?
Yeah, so when we first found out, it was a massive shock, kind of disbelief, to be honest. And it didn't seem real. But to be honest, I was so worried about him and how he felt, because it was a big thing for him. He was only 9 years old.
Yeah.
Also, kind of what you worry about what might happen in the future and how, is it going to get worse? Is it get better because there's no cure for it? It was awful, to be honest. And a lot of people obviously just say it's just hair, and it isn't just hair, it's mental health too, especially at that age. For me, it was more, I'd say, worry and stress that I couldn't control and make it better for him. And that really does get you down, yeah.
Now,
and seeing him low.
Yeah, I mean, Melissa, we spoke to a lady from the Alopecia UK charity, and she mentioned a part of alopecia, and I said, do you know what? Compared to somebody like Matthew, all I'm doing is losing a bit of hair, as age goes on. But really, it is just phenomenal what the courage that Matthew has. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have met him several times, and what a wonderful, wonderful young man. But Damo, I mean, can you imagine at 9 years old having to face losing parts of your hair?
Do you know, obviously I can't. And the other thing that's really strange and what's great about this show that we're doing is it's bringing awareness, not just to people who are listening to us, but to like me. I mean, I've never downplayed alopecia, but I've seen people, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that people as young as Matthew was, could get alopecia. I always remember a head teacher in school who was off for about a week or two, and then he came back in one day and he was wearing like the caps they wear on Peaky Blinders.
Right.
He was wearing one of them, and everyone's thinking, why is the head teacher wearing these caps? And then people noticed he hadn't got any hair at all on his head. I don't think he'd even got eyebrows. All the hair had gone completely. And this is primary school. So you can imagine at a primary school, we were all thinking, what's going on? Why does it look like that? And then obviously people tell you eventually, your mum and dad, he's got alopecia. And you just think, it's a thing that older people might get. And then also, ultimately, again, open conversation, like you just mentioned yourself, I'm lucky I've got a full set of hair. I'm 50. You're losing hair. But you just presume that, as you get older, you might lose some hair. And as a man, that's not like... It's just a kind of run-of-the-mill thing. It's a 50-50 thing.
It is, Damo, but I still... I mean, Melissa, it affected me. I cried when I first realised. Yeah. And I went to see... I can't remember the name of the person that you go and see to... What was the person who actually deals with hair? There's a certain name for it, and I should have it on me now, but I don't. Well, anyway, I spent about 150 quid going to see this person, and she said, you've got abnormal shedding. And I'm not going to lie, Damo, it affected me. Because growing up, I had a thick head of hair. We all did in the Stoppani family.
Yeah, I can imagine that. What I'd like to ask Melissa, actually, is going from, like, Matthew being a normal, healthy child, I presume there was an incident or something that happened that brought the alopecia on. Can you remember going from one stage of your life where everything seemed just perfectly normal and the changeover, and how did it happen, and how did that affect you as a mother?
Yeah, so he went on a school trip to Isle of Wight when he was 9 years old, and when he came back, I didn't actually know that he'd had a fall, and it happened on the day they were coming back. So when he came back, I was obviously excited to see him, and my other son, they'd both gone together with the school, and I kind of gave him a cuddle excitedly, and he was like, oh, my head. Anyway, cut long story short, we ended up having to take him to to the doctors, and he had to have his head glued. I think he had concussion after that as well, but he wasn't himself. But I think it was when he had his hair done a few weeks later, only about 3 weeks later, it wasn't long, and our friend who was cutting it kind of was like, there's like a bit of hair missing, and she was like, I haven't shaved it, I haven't done anything, and she was shocked. She kind of yelped out like, oh, kind of thing. And then when I saw it, I thought, no, that can't be. Maybe it's just a bit of like hair come out, a bit of a clump or something. But it basically progressively got worse from there. And yeah, it was a massive shock because we didn't really understand why, and we didn't have any answers, and we didn't know what was going on. And you obviously started worrying, and he did have blood tests and things, but obviously the doctors thankfully referred him to Milton Keynes, but unfortunately they just gave him a piece of paper and said it's alopecia, and the poor thing came out, and he looked at me and he was really upset, and he said, Mum, do they not care about me? And that really pulled at my heartstrings. So I was like,
gosh,
Son, we care about you.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my goodness. As a mother, how did it make you feel, Melissa?
It felt, quite honestly, that like nobody cared, and that probably sounds really silly, but it did. It felt like no one cared. There was no answer. And obviously our heart was breaking because we were seeing him upset, losing more and more hair, and there was just we didn't know what to do. And then you obviously get people, and they're trying to help, and they say, oh no, maybe it's just stress, blah, blah, blah. And we're okay, yeah, maybe it is, but what can we do to make this better? We want to make him better. We want to make him happy. So we went back to the doctors and said, Milton Keynes had just given a piece of paper. They didn't seem that bothered because obviously I guess it's, it's one of the things they can't do much, but they referred us to Northampton, and actually they were really good, and they tried different treatments, and they said there's obviously no cure. They did actually say it's alopecia areata, but trauma, because he'd had the fall and cracked his head open. So, yeah, we've got more answers from them, and that kind of seems a bit more like, okay, we know where we're going and what this is.
Yeah.
And he did have treatments. He had creams that burnt his head, which was horrible because it was like bad sunburn, and that was awful seeing him go through it. He had steroid injections, which dented his head. So he was only 9, and it's going to get me emotional. He didn't understand either. So it was kind of, yeah.
Yeah. We'll speak to Matthew in a moment. I know he's patiently waiting. But aside to the GPs and doctors, did you actually reach out for any other professional help or counselling for Matthew to address the mental health aspects of alopecia?
Do you know what? We didn't really know that Alopecia UK was kind of like a support system, which I wish we'd kind of looked more into. So we obviously were hoping the doctors would help. But I did actually reach out to school at one point, and they agreed to some counselling. But what kind of made me sad about that is he went for the first session, and bless him, because obviously you suppress things, don't you? You keep it in some, unfortunately, especially when you're young, you don't always know how to deal with your emotions, and that's why you need that support.
Yeah.
He kind of didn't want to let it out in the counselling session. So she said to him, do you see any point in this? And do you know why you're here? Is there any point being here? And he kind of obviously would say, and he did, no, I don't see the point. So then she rang me and said there's no point in having counselling. She doesn't see the point, and he doesn't see the point. And I was like, but that's not easy. You kind of need to keep going with it. And you need to be there. That's what it is.
And you were just left, just like that?
Yeah, pretty much no more. But do you know what? In another way, the school, or maybe they didn't with the counselling support emotionally, but they did have options like, because obviously I rang a few times and said that he did have a few incidents at school where things happened that weren't very nice. But I rang up and asked if there's any support that way. But they did say that he could wear like a cap, for example, to cover his bald bits. But like when I spoke to him, he didn't want to do that because he knew then even more so, he's even more singlised, if that makes sense. People know that he's different because he's the only one in a cap, if that makes sense. So, no, not really much emotional support, I wowould say, to be honest. But I now wish I'd kind of maybe looked at Alopecia UK. And what was lovely a few years back, I think it was 2000 and maybe, I want to say 18, 17, he actually wanted to raise money for Alopecia UK. So we did a run in Milton Keynes.
Wow.
The obstacle run. It was really good fun. He enjoyed it, and he raised over £500. He made a difference in that way, and that's what he wanted to do.
That's wonderful. That is absolutely gorgeous.
He's a good lad. He does me very proud.
Oh, I'm sure.
Can I just ask as well, Melissa? You said that you've got another son as well. Is he younger or older than Matthew?
I actually have 4 children.
Oh, wow, okay.
Matthew is the second one, yeah. I've got a son who's 19, Matthew's 18, and I've got a 15-year-old and a 12.
So a couple of questions there then. I mean, really, how did they cope with Matthew's condition? And also, do you think sometimes he felt even more different because he got siblings around him that he was comparing himself to? Did he understand what he was going through?
Yeah, do you know, I think I'm really lucky. Like, we're not a perfect family, obviously, but we are really loving and supportive. So we've all kind of got little things. I obviously won't go into it. It's not about the other children, but they have got their own struggles. I've got a couple of children on the spectrum, and they struggle as well. But they're all really supportive, and they didn't understand it, but they didn't kind of ask too many questions. They weren't hurtful about it. They didn't kind of treat him as any different. And I have to say, his friends have been phenomenal through his journey. They've never kind of taken the mickey out of him. They've never been anything, treated him any less. And you couldn't wish for more with that, even though they didn't understand it when they were younger. They didn't kind of go, oh, why's your hair like that, and things like that. They were really lovely to him, and I think that helped him.
How wonderful.
So
what a refreshing thing to hear, though, Melissa, that is.
Yeah.
I think especially when children, and they don't always understand it. I mean, I would, at their age, I wouldn't even know what alopecia was.
No.
I had no idea.
That's right.
Yeah, my mum used to always say to me, there's nothing as cruel as kids. Because kids will just say things, won't they? And they can be, they don't realise the weight of the words and how they can affect people.
And often it is in innocence, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And this is the thing, some of the things that have happened to him in the past. So he had instances where he'd be out somewhere, people would be staring, and then you'd just hear people say, oh, why would you cut your hair like that? Like, okay, you know, maybe you think he has cut his hair like that, but if you actually look properly at the hair, you'd know that's not a hairstyle. That's patches. That's something he can't control. There's no hair growth in those patches. There's nothing there. It's not shaved, nothing. You don't understand it. But this is where I think we all need to be mindful, even if we don't understand, just be mindful of what is going on. Because it's not obviously alopecia, you can see it, but you don't know what's going underneath. A bit like an iceberg. You know, it's deeper underneath, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. Absolutely. I mean, what would you say to anybody, Melissa, that, you know, for instance, could be just walking down the street, doing their shopping, going to their regular haunts, and they see somebody maybe for the first time and they don't realise it is alopecia. Come on, let's be honest. The logical thing to do is to be polite, not to stare, to make fun of. Yeah. I mean, that's just cruel. Absolutely cruel thing to do. Yeah. I mean,
he hasn't even been asked, has he got cancer? Which I guess he's going to think that maybe, but you know, at the same time, that's kind of a question that maybe don't want to ask. I get why people are asking, but you know, they're intrigued, they're interested, but sometimes those words really hurt, and a lot of he's had a lot of words over the years that have actually affected him.
But also, at the same point, Melissa, these questions, you know, if we can educate people, you know, I think that's the biggest thing that we can take from any sort of negative situation. Mm-hmm. If we can educate people to understand it a little bit more easier than they previously have done, then do you know what? That is a positive in my book. It really is.
And that's why I appreciate you doing this as well, because I think it's been a long old journey for him. And when we talked about, did he want to do this? Did he want to talk about it? Because he's never really talked about it, bless him, 21, because it's a big thing. And he really thought about it, and he said, yeah, Mum, I do, because I want to make a difference. I want people to know. I want to help people. And that's, if we could just help one person by listening to this, that would be...
This is what I say, absolutely. Do you know what? That is spot on. That is whatever I do, whether it's, you know, acting the fool or whatever, if I can make one person just forget about their worries just for a little bit, then I'll tell you what, I have done my job. And it is that simple. It really is. Melissa, can you share any positive experiences or personal growth that you or Matthew have gained, and obviously we'll speak to Matthew in a moment, that you've gained from living with alopecia?
Do you know what? I think it's been a long old journey for him, but he's done absolutely brilliantly. And for a parent to see his son at his lowest is heartbreaking, but to see him right now, I'd say he's shining. Like, he obviously has his moments, and he's still got alopecia, and it's there, but it's a part of him. It's really heartwarming to see how courageous he is, how brave he is, how strong he's become, and his self-belief has grown because he lost so much confidence with all of this. But it's so nice as well for him to understand that actually he is an amazing person, loving and kind and giving. But also, he's actually, I think, right now, probably at peace with his diagnosis, and that's just a massive thing.
That is huge.
To be at peace with something, once you're there, you're happy. Okay, you'd love to have his hair back, but do you know what? He's amazing. That's all I'm going to say. Like I said earlier, I'm super proud of him, and we're really lucky, really, really lucky.
Can I just say, Melissa, you knew my mum, Rachel.
I did, yeah.
Now, there was a time, she set up a laundrette in a place called Toaster in Northamptonshire, and she was working her socks off. Now, there was a point in her life that she had alopecia due to the amount of stress that, was incurred by working all the hours. And to see her as a woman was absolutely devastating. So, although I can't fully appreciate it, and I can't fully appreciate it, let's be honest, I can't, it was heartbreaking. So I can only imagine, something for somebody at 9 years of age. I can't even put that into words.
It's a life changer, I can tell you. I think he's grown up a lot through it. But you know what you're saying about your mum? I think your empathy for seeing your mum go through that, because that's the thing. I think there's a difference. People have sympathy, and I get that's such a lovely thing. But you know what? If you can put yourself in those person's shoes and have empathy and go, actually, I get why you're feeling like that, and say it's okay to feel that way. That's a massive thing. Don't brush it off and go, oh, it's just hair. It's not. It's deep in that. Listen to them. And if I can get one thing out to anybody listening, please reach out and realise it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel sad about it. It's okay to be worried. It's okay to be scared.
It's normal, isn't it? That is normal.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Any emotion you feel is normal. You're not happy all the time. I'm happy. You know me. I'm a happy person. But I'm not happy all the time. It's okay. Yeah. But what everyone must be, and it's really hard to be empathetic, I know, but try and be empathetic. Try and be mindful that actually that person might not be okay. And reach out, even if we don't understand what the journey we're going for. I mean, I didn't even understand with Matthew. I'd say, it's okay, I'm here. And he'd be like, you don't understand. And I'm like, I know I don't understand, but I love you, I care, and I'm here.
Yeah.
And those words, if you mean them, mean more than anything.
Powerful. Absolutely powerful.
Very. Melissa, can I just say as well, I mean, first of all, thank you so much for coming on and speaking to myself and Nick.
Thank you for listening to me and my son.
Yeah, it's an important message. And also, I mean, I obviously don't know you like Nick's known you, but for the conversation we've had tonight, number one, I can feel in your voice the pain, the anguish that you've been through in your life with the circumstances that you've been dealt. But also, you can hear that pride and that love that you've got, which I think is really important as well. So all the best to you. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. And
I'm trying not to cry.
It's okay. Hey, it's okay to cry. It's a strong thing to
cried
cry.
Earlier.
It's okay to cry. Only strong people ever cry. That's what I always say. But thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Melissa, thank you so much for speaking to us. Now, can you just please pass us over and we'll have a chat with Matthew?
Of course I can.
Hello, Matthew. How are you, mate?
I am good, thank you.
Well, first of all, thanks for coming on. Obviously, we've just spoken to your mum. Wonderful person, and I'm sure you'll agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's lovely.
But this is your story. This is something you've been through, and they've been there with you by your side all the way through. But we wanted to know about you and how it's affected you. So, we know this happened to you when you were, I think, 9 years old. How does that affect you as a 9-year-old?
Okay, so, yeah, when I first found out, obviously, it was quite a shock. And as time got on, I think being around other people who had hair, it was quite hard. Seeing people my age have all this hair. And on my head, I've got patches. So not being able to style it was quite a challenge for me. And obviously growing up at school, having it for 9 years, growing up from year 4 to now, I'm 18 now. I've had quite a lot of comments, which, and obviously being in school, children are quite insensitive to the topic, and a lot of them don't know what it is. So they'll make some comments which are insensitive to my condition, but obviously they wouldn't know what it is.
Can I ask, Matthew, did your alopecia affect your self-esteem differently to maybe how it does today, for example? The reason I asked that, Matthew, is because obviously you was only 9 years old. I can't imagine.
Yeah,
I can't
very young
imagine.
age.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that was like for somebody of that age.
Well, definitely, because there was a lot of periods where I had massive patches. I remember this one point when I was in year 5, and I had this massive patch of hair loss. I'm pretty sure it was about 10 centimeters wide right at the top. It'd be like a massive, like I was an old man balding.
Oh.
So that was definitely quite hard at that point, obviously, because you're quite young, so you don't really understand. But you kind of think, you kind of go to your mum saying, why does this happen?
Now, obviously, your mum, and I'm sure the rest of your family have been with you through every step, every emotion that you've faced. Is there anything that you want to say to your mum, especially to your mum? Because I know your mum is just what a woman she is, Matthew. You're so lucky to have a mum like that. Yes,
definitely. I think she's been very supportive, and I can open up and speak to her my alopecia areata all the time, and obviously there's been loads of times I've come home from school, or come home from some place, and I've cried my eyes out because of what I've been through at that point, or what happened that day, and what comments have been said to me. And my mum and family have been very supportive. Someone's there to speak to you about it. That means you can express your emotional pain. And
would you mind sharing? I mean, you don't have to, Matthew. I don't want to go over any negative ground here, but just to give the listener a bit of clarity, what type of comments would you have received?
Oh, I've had stuff like, oh, why would you get that trim? Or I've had little kids chuckling away, or because I guess they just don't understand. So I did have, when I was younger, this is like a few years ago now, I was about year 9, someone in my class drew on the back of one of my patches. I don't know why. I don't know what was going through their head.
Your mum was in our preliminary call. When we obviously we call people before we do the interview. Yeah. That's one thing she mentioned. I mean, that was just vile.
Yeah, no, it wasn't very nice. I think I came home and cried that day because of it. So that was one of the times where my mum was there for me and was able to support me and help me through it. But
I mean, obviously, Matthew, going through this, like I say, it's such a poignant part as well in a lad's life. From 9 years old, going into eventually into high school a couple of years after that, and then obviously to where you are now. Would you say? I mean, you've been through so much heartache and so many terrible times and that. But do you find any strength in what you've been through? I mean, you are here now. You're speaking to us. This takes immense strength to do this.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess you got to take the positives as well. That I have got hair on my face. I've got my eyebrows and all that, and I've had compliments on my eyebrows. And my mum does say that the woman would pay for my eyebrows, so I guess I would take that as a massive positive as well.
Obviously, we've touched on the fact that how strong you are to be doing what you're doing right now, Matthew, and I take my hat off to you completely for what you're doing, and thank you so much, because you are helping a lot of people by talking, and I know that's the reason that you're doing this.
Thank you.
But do you feel comfortable now to be able to talk openly about it? I mean, obviously you're talking on here now, but sometimes when you're speaking on a phone, or you're speaking like this on a podcast, is one thing, but speaking to people face to face, do you feel comfortable with the people around you? Do you feel comfortable with new people when you meet them? Or is there still something that's there that plays on your mind?
Well, I think it's an important part of me, and it's something I potentially got to live with for the rest of my life. So to open up about it and speak to people about my alopecia is a key thing. So not letting it interfere in my life or anything, and not letting it worry me. And to speak about it means that other people can know, and because obviously there is a lot of people that don't know about the condition, which is quite annoying, because obviously then that means a lot of people react that way in sensitive comments. So it's good to open up about it and speak to people about it. And I know obviously with my family as well, they just live with it with me, so they just so they're quite supportive at the end of the day.
I suppose it is really, really important to have that structure around you, Matthew, when you're faced with something like alopecia.
Yeah.
What would you say to specifically maybe another child out there that has recently been diagnosed with alopecia? Because your mum was saying that some of the treatments you had were quite horrendous, to be honest with you.
I did have quite a few needles in my head at one point to try stimulate growth, but I would say to a young person with alopecia just to keep trying, because they are trying to promote drug medication into the alopecia area. So yeah. I saw that they released some, I don't know, they're putting in trial, or I don't know how far it is, but they release these things to destroy the enzymes or something in the so that they wouldn't destroy the hair follicles or something. But that is fast developing. So I would say to them to hold on, and hopefully there will be a cure soon, because we all deserve it. And
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if anybody's listening now and you're faced with a new diagnosis, or you've been living with alopecia and you want to share your thoughts, then send us your text and your voice notes via WhatsApp. The number, of course, is 07822 010 810. That's 07822 010 810.
What's life like for you now? You're 18 years old, you've got your life ahead of you, loads of exciting times, loads of adventures you're going to go on. What's the optimistic outlook now for your life, mate?
Well, to be fair, from now on, I just look at the positives, and at this age, I don't really look at my hair loss as a drawback for me, and I'm just trying to get through my A-levels at the minute. And at the minute, I haven't really had any problems with my hair loss. There's not really been much comment, so at the minute I'm just trying to get through my A-levels, try to get to uni. But at the minute, the main thing is my A-levels, and I'm quite optimistic about that. So,
good luck, Matthew. What do you want to study at uni?
I would like to study sports therapy.
Work hard and
I'll try
and go for it. Good luck. Yeah. Matthew, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking the time. And I know you thought about it. You did think about it long and hard. It wasn't just, yes, Nick, I'll come on the show and talk. You really did think about it, and that is fantastic. Thank you so much.
That's all right. Yeah, I definitely want to get my story out there and tell the wider community about it, just to educate them on it.
Well, I tell you what, Matthew, next time we do a segment on alopecia, then definitely come back on the show. You're more than welcome.
Yeah,
the doors are open, Matthew.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. I'll come back on.
Thank you so much, mate, for coming on. To you, and we spoke to your mum. You've got a wonderful family. So love to all of you.
Thank you.
All the best with your future. Keep in touch with us. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
That's all right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Oh, what a lovely guy he was, Damo.
Lovely family, mate. Melissa, what a mom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But what struck me, Damo, is how brave Matthew was.
I'm so glad that he came onto the show. And obviously that's the reason he came on, was to share his story and to obviously give other people out there a message of, it is a message of hope, and it's a message of positiveness, because there's lots of things out there, and there's a stigma around things like alopecia, and we just need to get people understanding. We need to educate people. We are educating ourselves. Yeah. We need to educate more people as well. But amazing guests, and we're so lucky to have them on the first show. So thank you both again for being on.
And don't forget, the website for Alopecia UK is alopecia.org.uk. Lots of information on that website.
And of course, you guys can connect with us. Just head over to headcasespodcast.co.uk, where you'll find all our details, the WhatsApp number, all of the social media stuff. And remember, hashtag Let's Get Talking.
Absolutely. Let's get that trending. Come on. Hashtag Let's Get Talking. I think there's only one thing to say, Damo.
What's that, Nick?
We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Head Cases Podcast, hosted by Damo Sims and Nick Stoppani. Headcasespodcast.co.uk.